We need to find a way to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, if we're going to save America.
This is Paige. Welcome to the Necessary Trouble Show. Here's your host, my dad, Russell Fugett.
Welcome back to the Necessary Trouble Show. Good job, Paige Pie. I'm Russell Fugett. We're here in the Good Word Digital Studios, and I'm just excited today. It's the day before Election Day. We have a great show today, starting out with two of my friends. Our first return guest, Paul Kendrick, the Executive Director of Rust Belt Rising, and Carmina Taylor, who is the founder of the We Can't Wait PA Coalition, which is working on get out the vote efforts primarily focused in rural Pennsylvania. Thank you both for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Paul, I'm going to start with you. Yeah, well, you were on the first episode. We're going to have to bring you back here before Election Day. How are things looking on the ground in those crucial Midwestern states? I know you got a lot of phone banking and get out the vote efforts going on. How are we looking, of course, top of the ticket, but all the way down?
We have enough people that want change, that agree with us, that want better handling of COVID, of civil rights, and bringing people together for equality, of economy with good jobs and thriving communities, protecting healthcare. People are on our side. We just have to help them vote now. That's what it all comes down to at this point. And I think the key thing is, if anyone has a ballot, just letting them know you got to go hand deliver it now. It's too late to put it in the mail. But in many states, even if you aren't registered, you can go register and vote on Election Day. And certainly if you are registered, to go vote. And so with Rust Belt Rising, we are going hard on the virtual phone bankings. Anyone can sign up at mobilize.us/Rust Belt Rising. Because all throughout Election Day, we're calling Michigan and Wisconsin voters, giving them the info on where their polling location is, helping them make a plan for when they're going to do it, the information that they need. And so we'll train you up over Zoom on that. Right now, like I said, it's just about that important charge that, the title of your show, Necessary Trouble, that John Lewis gives us. We just got to help people vote. And then we are going to swear in a new government of and for and by the people.
That's awesome.
Here, here. And real quick, how is the COVID flare, particularly in Wisconsin, but in that whole region, how is that impacting your work?
Yeah, it has certainly led lots of people to vote by mail. And I think that has been very important relative to understanding that about 75% of Democrats will have voted by Election Day. And so this means a few things that we have to, in these phone banks we're doing, it allows us to really target who hasn't voted or who hasn't turned in their ballot so that they can go and hand deliver their ballot on Election Day. They can go to their polling location, and give in their ballot. It means we shouldn't panic about, if we don't see as many people at the polls on Election Day. Well, most of our party has voted. And so, but we also need to be ready to be in the streets to protect the results. We know the Trump strategy is going to be challenging the counting of every vote in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, everything. And so, but we know he's only trying to cheat because he's losing. He's scared of us all voting. And when we all vote, we win, and we're going to win. So I think the uptick in COVID just shows in Wisconsin that on a national level, we need better leadership who really has a plan, who's clear on the importance of masks and consistent on that, who gives us the right information so we can make judgments in our life, who can really get mass testing out there and contact tracing. So I think we really got to make sure people understand that we need better leadership on that issue. If that's the question the election is decided on, Joe Biden will absolutely win. And but the Democratic Party has really done the work of helping people be able to vote beforehand. We just got to make sure they get the ballots in now. In Wisconsin, you can't mail it in it can't arrive after Election Day, so it's too late to mail it. You got to hand deliver it, and you can do that. And there's drop boxes. The clerk's office, the polling sites. So there's no reason that we can't get this all done, but we have to get it all done on election day in order to win. But at the same time, if you are voting in person, that's okay. Wear a mask, socially distance. And you can do that safely too. So it's just everyone has to have a plan that's right for them, and we got to help everyone have that plan, and then we can win this.
Have a plan for tomorrow. Carmina, turning to you. Of course, in Philadelphia gets a lot of the attention, and the district attorney there has been very vocal, as has the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, to deflect and discourage any kind of voter intimidation. Of course, you're doing work in the rural areas, which might seem counterintuitive. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing and what you're seeing on the ground in Pennsylvania.
So, based on my experience of getting outreach done in 2016 and realizing that Philadelphia needed to increase its voting, there's a lot of work being targeted to Philadelphia. But what happened is I started learning about a lot of racial injustices happenings in rural PA. So for about the last month and a half or so, every weekend I've been going to all different parts of rural PA, and I realized that there were candidates running for state office in rural PA that needed an extra lift and needed an extra outreach to get to voters that are disengaged. So I started going to the northwestern part, the north central, and west, and I went northeast last weekend. And the purpose of that is that we have small cities and small and rural areas that have a higher percentage of registered Democratic voters in their small cities, not on the outskirts, but they didn't come out and vote in the primary, and they're somewhat disengaged. So I've been going into these communities to talk to them and really get them to galvanize their power in voting. And they may not get some of the state seats, but at least we can raise the bar and increase the turnout. And I think those numbers in those small cities will help the larger picture for the total vote in Pennsylvania, because they haven't been engaged before. So even if we may not win some of the state races, because the outskirts of the rural areas for these state seats, there's a little bit more registered Republicans. But if we increase that on the ground with the ones that have a higher percentage, I think that'll help the big picture. So I'm just trying to do my part in an area where there needs uplifting. And the reason I kind of strategically targeted certain districts, because these are people that are the incumbents are senators and state reps that are either the Speaker of the House, the majority whip in the Senate, the outgoing Senate president is retiring, and the man that's going to fill his position if they retain power in Harrisburg. We have a fabulous candidate going against them, but she needs help. So I'm here to bridge the communities together, to see their value, even though they're in rural PA. I was saying to someone earlier, one of the phenomenons that I've learned in my journey is that the public school systems, where there's 97% white student population, their economically disadvantaged students are between 30 to 50%. But in some of these rural areas where they have 85-90% white and have Black and brown students, the poverty rate or the economically disadvantaged rate at the high school level is 50 to 90%. So you're looking at communities that have high poverty levels and low education. Like one city, Johnstown City, the median income there is $24,000. 12% of the adults only have bachelor's degrees. Their high school students, 86% economically disadvantaged. What do you do with that, right? But when you looked at the numbers in terms of registered voters in Johnstown City, there's 5,700 registered Democrats and 2,700 registered Republicans. 3,000 didn't come out and vote for the primary. So if we get those 3,000 to come up and get 3,000 in Williamsport and get 2,000 in Wilkesboro, that adds up in numbers that will help the larger picture. And you take the West and the East between Pittsburgh and Philly, we have a fighting chance to overtake the doubters. Now, I will say this. I feel like some of the, well, I won't say that, but I'm just trying to do my part, and no one has paid attention. It's a phenomenon, right? So I'm a Black woman from the Southeast region, and I'm going into rural PA, and that's huge. They look at me like I'm kind of crazy, but once I start talking to them, they embrace me, and I just feel like that's part of my contribution to doing something in Pennsylvania. So we are collating communities across. What we did is we got local BLM organizers from across the state. I want to tell you another phenomenon. Since June, there have been over 500 local protests in 230 communities in Pennsylvania, and over a third of these protests have come from rural PA, where they're white communities. So that's phenomenal, right? So I wanted to build off of that, and for me being on the other side of the state, it's proven to be beneficial for all. They appreciate the efforts that I'm making to reach out to them. So go rural PA, I'm with you, and we're going to knock it out the bunt.
I love it.
And
I think, and that's the beauty of this show and this episode, Black or White. We all want to see Americans do better and be healthier and have more sustainable communities for the future of our youth and our communities and our country, for that matter. I want to close this segment with this question to both of you. Pennsylvania and Michigan, both a part of that blue wall. And Carmina, I'm going to stay with you really about Pennsylvania. Then Paul, I'm going to come to you about Michigan. The vote count is going to come. The vote count is not going to start until Election Day. It's going to come in late, heading until a Friday, November 6th, and perhaps beyond. What do you expect things to be like on the ground, especially if the election is still in doubt as we get later in the week this week?
I honestly think there's going to be civil unrest in the suburbs and in rural PA, and even in the city. I really do. We just had that recent police shooting in West Philly on Wednesday, and we're all on pins and needles, and it's just been building and building. So we have a Proud Boys faction in South Philly, and so it's up in the air. It really is. And in rural PA, somebody said to me, if they hadn't talked to me and I went past their porch, they would have tried to shoot me. So I don't know. I think it's very tense, because we know that all eyes are on us, and the factions that are against Biden are real. So the local politicians I've talked to think that we'll know something conclusively, even at the local level, by Friday. So right. I'm just hoping that we have an overwhelming success across the country, and it won't be as critical. But I'm doing my part to the end. I'm fasting, Russell, so I'm trying something different.
Fasting and praying our way through this. No, that's real. So Paul, likewise, what are you seeing on the ground in Michigan where they're going to be counting votes beyond Election Day?
So 2 things. One is, again, making sure we hand deliver any ballots we have on Election Day, or hopefully earlier, but by Election Day. In Wisconsin, we already know they are not going to count ballots that come in after Election Day, and we're still worried about the Supreme Court reversing and stopping that in Pennsylvania or Michigan. So just get them in by Election Day. Don't put it in the mail. And 2, we really need to have a message of, we all believe, no matter our background, we all believe in America, of counting every ballot. And elections are administered by patriotic Americans every time who work these polls, who do these counting. Trump has tried to, he lies so much and tries to get so much distrust of the electoral process. He's, vilified Philadelphia baselessly. But we don't want to repeat his lies, nor do we even want to negate his lies. We want to put forward the truth. So the truth is that we got to, in America, count every vote. And we all believe that. And we believe when every vote is counted, we are really going to have change for all of our families. We're going to be able to have change on systemic racism and civil rights, on defeating COVID, on building a thriving economy, on getting our healthcare costs down, on protecting our environment and clean water, on having quality education for our kids, and options and opportunities for careers. So we just really want to focus in on our narrative, which is the truth, that in America, we count all the ballots, and that's how we've always done it. And that's what hardworking, particularly elders, are doing in local towns and communities and cities all around our region. So let's just focus on that. But we'll be in the streets if we need to, because we got to count every vote. And so let's not amplify lies. Let's tell the real truth in America.
Here, here. Paul Kendrick, thanks for coming back. That's Paul Kendrick, the Executive Director of Rust Belt Rising. And Carmina Taylor, thank you for joining us, the founder of We Can't Wait PA Coalition. Thank you both for being guests on Necessary Trouble. Be safe and keep up the good fight.
This is Paige. Welcome to the Necessary Trouble Show. Here's your host, my dad, Russell Fugett.
And welcome back. Today I'm dipping in the well again with my George Washington University fellow alum, and it is so many doing so many wonderful things. And I just want to introduce Ernesto Apreza, who is the state director for the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign in Colorado. Ernesto, good to see you, and welcome to the Necessary Trouble Show.
Hey, man, it's really good to see you. It's been a minute, but it's really good to be back. It's good to be on your program. And that opening by your kid was adorable. So this is going to be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, just like when we met back at George Washington University, just trying to build community, build a platform, and elevate voices like yours. So again, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
All the polls say you're kicking butt in Colorado. How are things looking on the ground for the campaign?
Yeah, things are looking really good. I mean, we knew going in that we've been doing really well. Like the polling has been telling us that we're doing really well since the summer. But I think that like most people, I mean, if we truly learned our lesson from 2016, we're not taking a thing for granted. And that is really the mentality that we came into this with. And all I can say is the team on the ground has been crushing it every single day with that mentality. And that has put us in an even better position as we're, now 5 days away from Election Day. So we're feeling really good. We're not going to take the, gas out the pedal. So we're just going to continue kind of eye on the prize from now until then, because anything can happen.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about the Latino, Latinx vote. And obviously, people want to paint it with a broad brush, but there's so many distinct groups and so many different nationalities represented here in America within 100%. That broader context. What are you seeing in Colorado, but also what are you seeing nationwide in terms of that vote, to the extent you can summarize it? And of course, I know by geographic location it's different. What can you tell us about the Latinx vote as it relates to this election and the Biden-Harris campaign in particular?
Yeah. Well, first, I will just say it's been a top priority for the campaign to make sure that we're doing the work that's necessary to engage Latinos in every corner of the country, including here in Colorado. Just to state the obvious, the Latino vote is not a monolith. And this campaign, I think, if you want to engage a community, the first thing that you have to do is actually recognize the community and understand it. And so what you've seen is, a tailored approach to states like Florida and Colorado and Arizona that are very specific to those states, to those communities. In Colorado, it is very interesting because I'd say even in Colorado, we have a very diverse Latino population. If you go to Southern Colorado, there are Latinos there who have been in this country for generations and generations, going back to the founding of the state, all the way until recent immigrants who are here, recently naturalized folks. And so for us, I think ultimately what we're looking for is, what are the issues that Latino voters care about? And, by and large, it's going to be the same issues that everybody cares about: the economy, healthcare. And the next step thereafter is making sure that we're making the information as accessible as possible. So whether that's making sure that we're plugging into the radio stations, making sure that we are reaching people truly where they're at, is then really the next part of that equation. And then doubling down on it as many times as possible, hitting up those same platforms with voter education, with contrast on what the two candidates are going to be able to do for our communities has been important. So that's just a little bit about what we've done here and how the campaign is taking it nationally. There's no question that Latinos are going to be a huge determining factor in who ends up winning this race. In Colorado alone, about 18% of our electorate is going to be Latino. And so we are doing everything that we can to engage Latinos.
What does the future look like beyond Election Day in the Latino community? There seems to be a lot of energy from your generation that are organizing, registering folks to vote. There's a number of different groups that have come about around a lot of different issues, many of which you mentioned. What does the future look like beyond Election Day, and maybe what are some of the things perhaps in the on Joe Biden's platform that we could look to should he be elected?
Yeah, so I will say I hope that it continues to grow. I think, with what occurred, like the murder of George Floyd earlier in the year, that kind of spurred all these movements across the country. I believe that it also inspired a lot of young Black and Brown people to get more involved in their communities. And my sincere hope is that between organizers who have decided that they didn't want to sit on the sidelines of this historic election, that it just continues. I mean, that's truly it. Elections are a snapshot in time of how people feel, of what they're thinking, of what their values are, of what they want to get done. And it's really those long-term organizers that really set the pace towards long-term progressive changes. And so my hope is that they continue hustling, that they continue doing the work that needs to be done to organize our communities, because despite how far we've come, despite the number of Latinos that are going to turn out to vote this year, there's still such a huge fraction who are likely not going to turn out, either because they didn't have the information that they needed, they weren't registered to vote, or they didn't get the engagement that they needed to be able to turn out to vote. So my sincere hope is that it just continues in whatever way folks are comfortable doing and staying involved, but it's so important to us. I think the other big lesson that I hope people never forget is, even if it's just one election, we don't have the luxury of being apathetic or not caring or being involved or being tuned in. A third Supreme Court justice was just confirmed in a matter of 4 years that is going to have detrimental effects to a lot of the things that we care about for generations to come. And so we really do not have the privilege of just sitting it out. And I hope that folks who are getting involved now continue to do so for years to come. The vice president and Kamala are also going to need folks in their corner who are continuing to stress the importance of the issues that they really care about, so that it's clear to any folks who oppose, for whatever reason, fighting on behalf of working class Americans, that there are a lot of folks out there who believe the same way, who think the same way. I think in terms of what the vice president and Senator Harris provide the Latino community, I think first and foremost is just a level of respect and recognition of the community. I mean, we have seen this president absolutely disrespect Latinos at every corner of everything that he does. And at a minimum, there's a respect, and then there's also truly caring that there is access to opportunity for everyone, no matter where they're from or where they grew up. And so, a big component of the vice president's kind of vision for the future has been his Build Back Better plan, which is really harkens back to just making economic opportunity available to everyone. And there's a specific pillar of his plan specifically dedicated to race and social justice, and making sure that we're thinking through access through the equity lens as well. So I think that we can expect vice president to be a president of the people and truly all people.
Love it. Well, thanks for taking a few minutes off the campaign trail to be with us, Ernesto. As I said, I've known you for so long and just so proud to see the work that you are doing in Colorado. So thanks for being a part of the Necessary Trouble Show today.
Hey, thank you again so much for having me. I would ask all your listeners, if they haven't already, to go to iwillvote.com to make a plan on how to vote. Not every state has this, but in the state of Colorado, for instance, you can go in to a voting location and actually register to vote and vote the exact same day up until Election Day. So folks, just go to iwillvote.com, be aware of the laws in your state on how to register and how to vote, and go out and do your thing.
All right, iwillvote.com. Ernesto Apreza, the state director for the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign in Colorado. Again, Ernesto, proud of you, brother. Thanks for being a part of the Necessary Trouble Show today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching The Necessary Trouble Show. Please visit necessarytroubleshow.com to support the show and to learn more. Subscribe to our e-newsletter and podcast, and follow us on social media at Necessary Trouble Show.
Good job, Daddy. This is Paige. Thanks for watching.